The year was 2421, and humanity had reached the stars. Great silver ships carried people to far worlds. Cities of glass and steel stood on planets where, only a century ago, no human had ever set foot. The dream of space travel had become real. But not everyone in the galaxy welcomed this rise. The Galactic Council, a vast assembly of ancient alien civilizations, ruled over most of known space. They saw themselves as protectors of galactic balance. For thousands of years, they had set laws on trade, colonization, and warfare. To them, humanity was a newcomer, bold, unpredictable, and growing too fast. Now the Council had decided to act. On a bright morning above Earth, the orbital assembly station floated in the sunlight. It was a ring-shaped city in space, where delegates from across the galaxy met. Inside its grand hall of voices, hundreds of alien representatives sat in curved rows, their faces and forms lit by soft blue light. At the center stood Ambassador Sarah Holt, leader of the human delegation. She wore the black and silver uniform of the United Earth Diplomatic Corps. Her dark eyes were steady, but deep inside, she felt the weight of what was coming. From the Council's high platform, High Speaker Zorath addressed the chamber. He was tall, his skin a shade of green gold, his eyes like shards of ice. His voice was slow and deliberate, each word echoing across the hall. "Humanity," Zorath said, "your expansion has gone too far. In 30 short years, you have claimed 27 worlds. You have altered ecosystems without approval. You have built fleets without license. Such actions threaten the harmony we have kept for millennia." Sarah spoke calmly, though her heart pounded. "With respect, High Speaker, we have only settled unclaimed worlds. We have harmed no one. We have followed trade laws. We only ask for the right to grow." The High Speaker's gaze was cold. "You will withdraw from your newest colonies within 30 days. Remove your people, dismantle your stations, and return to your original borders. If you refuse, the Council will take measures to ensure compliance." The room filled with murmurs. Some alien delegates nodded in agreement. Others looked uneasy. Sarah tried once more. "We cannot abandon families who have built homes on these worlds. If you attack us, we will defend ourselves." "You misunderstand," Zorath said, his voice sharpening. "This is not a threat. It is a statement of fact. 30 days. No more." The session ended. Sarah walked out into the glass corridor that curved along the edge of the station. Through the wide windows, Earth shone below, a blue and white jewel against the blackness of space. Her deputy, Commander Rafe Henson, joined her. "They're serious," Rafe said quietly. "I saw their fleet reports. They've been moving warships toward our borders for weeks." Sarah stopped walking. "Then this isn't about balance, it's about control." Back on Earth, in the vast underground chambers of the United Earth Defense Command, military leaders gathered around. A glowing table, a three-dimensional map of human space, rotated slowly above it, showing bright blue points for colonies and red points for Council fleets. Admiral Jonathan Reeve stood at the head of the table. He was a tall man in his 60s, with silver hair, and a voice like steel. "They've given us 30 days, he said. "But intelligence reports show they might strike sooner. We cannot trust their words." Some officers argued for a defensive strategy. Others wanted to prepare a counterstrike, but the politicians above them were still pushing for peace. "We can't look like the aggressor," one of the civilian leaders said. "If we fire first, the whole galaxy will turn against us." Admiral Reeve's eyes narrowed. "If we wait for them to fire, we'll lose entire worlds before we can respond. We need contingency plans now." Meanwhile, far from Earth on the colony world of New Horizon, life went on, but with a shadow over it. Farmers tended to their crops under the twin suns, and children played in the glass-domed parks, yet everyone had heard the news. Governor Imani Hale met with her council in the capital's main hall. "If the council enforces their order," she said, "we'll have to evacuate. But we've only been here 7 years. People have worked hard to make this world a home." One council member shook his head. "They don't care about our homes. They care about their rules." Back at the orbital assembly station, Sarah sent a secure message to Admiral Reeve. "Jonathan," she said, "the council isn't here to negotiate. They've already decided our fate. We need to be ready. If they move against us, they won't." "Stop at the colonies. They'll come for Earth," Admiral Reeve replied within minutes. "Understood. Preparations are already underway. If they want to fight, they'll find out exactly what humanity is capable of." In the days that followed, Earth's shipyards worked without pause. Massive cruisers and nimble corvettes were pulled from dry dock. Weapon platforms were tested, in orbit. Troop transports began discreet movements toward the frontier, but still, publicly, humanity spoke of peace. News broadcasts showed smiling diplomats and hopeful headlines. Behind that calm surface, however, a storm was building. Somewhere deep inside her, Sarah knew the truth. The 30 days would pass quickly, and when they were over, the galaxy would change forever. She stood again by the wide windows of the station, watching Earth spin in the darkness. "We will not bow," she whispered to herself. "Not now, not ever." Two weeks after the peace conference, reports arrived from the asteroid belt. A remote mining colony, rich in rare minerals, had been attacked by the Galactic Empire's soldiers. The Empire claimed the asteroids as their territory, even though Earth had already signed an agreement to mine them. The Earth Alliance sent a small defense fleet, but compared to the Empire's massive warships, it was a fragile force. Still, they had no choice. If they surrendered the asteroids without a fight, Earth would lose respect forever. Captain Marcus Hale stood in the command center of the troop transport Resolute, watching a holographic display of the battle zone. Blue dots marked human ships. Red dots, far more of them, marked the enemy. "Shields up," Commander Briggs ordered. "All ships, prepare to engage." Marcus wasn't part of the bridge crew today. His mission was different. He and his small unit were being sent to the surface of asteroid X-17 to defend the mining site. If the Empire took the mines, they would cut off Earth's access to vital resources. The Resolute entered the asteroid's thin atmosphere. The ship shook as enemy fire rained down from above. Plasma bolts flashed past the windows like streaks of lightning. "Touchdown in 2 minutes," the pilot called out. Marcus checked his sniper rifle, sliding a fresh magazine into place. Around him, his team prepared their weapons, standard rifles, grenades, and a few heavy machine guns. Against energy weapons, they felt primitive, but they were all they had. The ship landed hard, the ramp dropping to the rocky surface. The air was thin, cold, and dusty. Marcus led his team toward a ridge overlooking the mining camp. Alien troops were already there, marching in perfect formation, their armor glowing faintly as their energy shields activated. "Positions," Marcus ordered. The humans opened fire first. Bullets tore through the dust-filled air, but most bounced harmlessly off the alien shields. The aliens returned fire, their plasma bolts smashing into rocks and metal, sending chunks flying. Marcus didn't waste a shot. He lay flat on the ridge, his scope sweeping across the battlefield. He found an alien officer giving orders near the front. The officer's shield shimmered brightly. Marcus adjusted his aim. He remembered what he'd learned during his years. As a marksman, shields were strongest in the center, but often weaker where they curved around the body. The neck area, just under the helmet, looked vulnerable. He took a breath, held it, and squeezed the trigger. The shot cracked through the air, A heartbeat later, the alien officer fell without a sound, his shield flickering and dying. Confusion spread among the alien troops. They had never seen a projectile go straight through a shield. "Nice shot," Sarah's voice came through the comms. Marcus didn't respond. He was already lining up the next one. Another officer fell, then another. The human troops noticed the shift. They pushed forward, taking cover behind mining equipment and storage crates. Without their officers, the alien lines began to break. But the Empire wasn't finished. A deep rumble shook the ground. Over the ridge came two massive alien walkers, machines with legs like towers, each armed with heavy plasma cannons. The first shot destroyed half of the human cover in a burst of light. "We can't stop those things," a soldier shouted. "Yes, we can," Marcus said calmly. He aimed for the joints, thick armor plates but still physical parts that could be damaged. The first bullet struck a knee joint. Sparks flew, and the walker staggered. He fired again and again, each time hitting a weak spot the aliens had never considered protecting from simple bullets. The first walker collapsed sideways, its leg shattered. The second turned toward Marcus's position, plasma cannons glowing. As they charged, Marcus rolled away just in time, the shot scorching the rock where he had been lying. "Move!" Sarah yelled, dragging him behind cover. The humans concentrated their fire on the second walker while Marcus aimed for its cockpit. The bullet punched through and the machine went still. Silence fell for a moment. Then the remaining alien troops began retreating, carrying their wounded. The humans had held the mining site. From orbit, the Empire's commanders were in shock. Reports came in about a human weapon that pierced shields, something they had believed impossible. The news spread quickly through the fleet. Back at the ridge, Marcus reloaded his rifle. "They won't underestimate us next time," he said quietly. Sarah nodded. "Good. Let them be afraid." Above them, the battle in space still raged, but the humans had won their first ground victory. It wasn't much in the grand scale of the war, but it was enough to prove one thing. Earth was not as helpless as the Empire believed, and for Marcus, it was only the beginning.
Maria's first instinct was to run. When she saw the older gentleman walking toward her and the children at the playground, every alarm in her head started ringing. She had learned to be cautious about strangers, especially men who approached her when she was alone with Sophia and Diego. "Diego, Sophia, come here please," she called softly, not wanting to alarm them but needing them close. The man stopped a respectful distance away and held up his hand slightly, as if he understood her caution. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said. His voice was gentle, with a slight accent she couldn't quite place. "My name is David Chen. I've been buying tamales from you at the park." Maria studied his face, trying to remember. There had been so many customers, so many faces over the past few weeks. Then it clicked. The quiet man who always ordered one tamale and horchata, who complimented her grandmother's recipe. "Oh, yes," she said, relaxing slightly but keeping the children close. "I remember, but I'm not selling food today. I don't have my table." David nodded. "I know. I saw what happened with the park ranger the other day. I've been thinking about it ever since." Sophia tugged on Maria's hand. "Mama, can we go on the swings?" "In a minute, meammer." Maria looked back at David, waiting to hear what he wanted. In her experience, people who thought about her problems usually wanted something from her, not to help her. "I know this might sound strange," David continued, "but I think I might be able to help you. I have some ideas about your food business. I appreciate that, but I don't think there's anything. What if I told you I know of a commercial kitchen? Space that's sitting empty? One that's already set up with all the permits and health department approvals?" Maria felt her heart skip, then immediately told herself not to get excited. Sir, I appreciate the thought, but I can't afford to rent commercial space. I can barely afford. She stopped herself. She didn't need to share her problems with a stranger. David shifted the notebook from one arm to the other. What if cost wasn't an issue? Now Maria was really suspicious. She had heard stories about people who offered help that came with strings attached, who preyed on desperate situations. Nothing is free, Mr. Chen. What would you want in return? It was a fair question, and David appreciated her directness. Honestly, company. My wife died 6 months ago, and I've been pretty lonely. I used to help her in the kitchen when she cooked for church events. I miss that feeling of being useful. The answer was so unexpected that Maria didn't know how to respond. She studied his face, looking for signs of deception, but saw only sadness and something that looked like genuine hope. Mama, Diego whispered loudly. Is he the nice man who likes your tamales? SHH, baby. Maria looked back at David. I don't understand. You're offering to let me use a kitchen for free? Not exactly free, David said. I'd like to help sometimes, if you let me. I used to teach high school mathematics before I retired, so I'm good with numbers. Maybe I could help with the business side of things. Maria's mind was racing. It sounded too good to be true, which usually meant it was. But something in David's voice, something in the careful way he kept his distance, and spoke softly around the children, made her want to listen. Why me? She asked. You don't even know me. David was quiet for a moment, watching Diego kick at the playground sand. I've been watching you for weeks. The way you treat your customers, the way you take care of your children, the way you help other people even when you're struggling yourself. You remind me of my wife. She always said the best people are the ones who stay kind even when life is hard. Something in his voice when he mentioned his wife made Maria's suspicions soften slightly. She knew that kind of pain, had heard it in her own voice when she talked about her grandmother. What kind of kitchen? She heard herself asking. David's face brightened slightly. It used to be a small restaurant. My friend Tony ran it for 15 years before he retired and moved to Florida. Everything's still there. Commercial stove, prep tables, walk-in cooler. The health department permit is still valid for another 8 months, and you own it. Tony left it to me when he couldn't find anyone to take over the lease. I've been trying to figure out what to do with it ever since. Maria felt Sophia lean against her leg, getting tired of adult conversation. Diego had found a stick and was drawing patterns in the sand, making quiet car sounds under his breath. I would need to see it first, Maria said carefully, and I want to know exactly what you expect from me. Of course, David agreed immediately, and I understand why you're being careful. If I were you, I'd be suspicious too. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. This is my information. The kitchen is about 10 minutes from here. You could follow me in your own car, look around, and leave any time you want. Maria took the card. It was simple. White, with just his name and phone number. Nothing fancy or professional looking, which somehow made her trust it more. What's the catch? She asked bluntly. David smiled, the first real smile she had seen from him. The catch is that I'm a retired teacher who doesn't know anything about running a food business, so you'd have to be patient with me. And sometimes I talk too much about my wife, and I make terrible coffee, even though I think I make good coffee. Despite everything, Maria found herself almost smiling. Those don't sound like terrible catches. Well, I also leave my reading glasses everywhere, and sometimes I hum old songs without realizing it. This time Maria did smile, just a little. Sophia looked up at her with curious eyes, as if she could sense her mother's mood shifting. Can we look at it today? Maria asked, then immediately second-guessed herself. I mean, if you have time. I don't want to impose. I have all the time in the world, David said gently. That's one of the few advantages of retirement. As they walked toward their cars, Diego running ahead and Sophia holding Maria's hand. David found himself thinking about Eleanor. She would have liked Maria, would have appreciated her strength and her caution in equal measure. Maybe this was why he had been drawn to that park bench every morning, not just to remember Eleanor, but to find a way to honor the kind of person she had been. Maria's Honda made that grinding sound again when she started it, and she saw David notice it in her rearview mirror. Another worry to add to her list, but somehow, for the first time in months, her list of worries felt a little shorter than her list of possibilities.
Alex stood before the third trial, his body still sore from the grueling challenges that had come before. The maze had tested his mind, but now the heart of the flame awaited. A trial designed to test not just his will and intellect, but his very spirit. It was the most dangerous of the trials, one that many had failed to survive. But Alex wasn't about to back down, not after everything he had been through. The words of Princess Lyre echoed in his mind. "If you survive, I'll marry you." It had started as a joke, a challenge she never thought anyone could meet, but now, as he stood on the edge of this inferno, it had become something more. The trial was set on a volcanic planet, known for its constant eruptions and molten rivers. The ground beneath Alex's feet vibrated, and the air was thick with the stench of sulfur. The heat was unbearable, and the sky above was darkened with ash clouds. This was no ordinary test. It was a trial of courage, strength, and determination. The goal was simple: retrieve the heart of the flame, a crystal said to hold immense power from the heart of an active volcano. But getting to it would not be easy. The path was filled with dangers: lava flows, shifting rocks, and the ever-present threat of eruption. Lyre, standing on a balcony high above the trial grounds, looked down at Alex. She had seen many challengers fail here before, their bodies burned or crushed by the wrath of the volcano. The heat, the dangers, everything in this trial was designed to break even the strongest beings. She had no doubt that the human would not survive. It was impossible. No human had ever completed such a test. But as Alex stepped forward, he seemed different, more determined than ever. Lyre couldn't help but feel a flicker of doubt. She had underestimated him in the past, but this was something else. The volcano was a beast in itself, roaring with fury, and Alex was just a human. But he had already proven himself in ways no one expected. Could he really survive this? Alex took a deep breath and stepped onto the rocky terrain, his boots sinking slightly into the loose earth. His eyes scanned the volcano in the distance. It was massive, towering above him, its peak occasionally erupting with bursts of molten rock and steam. The heat was oppressive, and sweat dripped down his face. He knew that the trial wasn't just about strength. It was about timing, skill, and knowing when to act. The first part of the trial was crossing a vast chasm of lava. The only way across was a narrow stone bridge that seemed to hover just above the molten river below. Alex knew that one misstep would mean certain death. He took a moment to steady his breathing, reminding himself that panic would only lead to failure. One step at a time. He focused on the bridge, its cracks and uneven surface. His instincts kicked in, and he moved with precision, placing each foot carefully as he navigated the treacherous path. The heat from the lava below was intense, and the air shimmered with the rising heat waves. As he crossed the bridge, Alex's muscles burned, and the heat made it hard to breathe, but he didn't stop. His focus was unbreakable. With each step, he drew closer to his goal, the heart of the volcano, where the crystal lay waiting. Meanwhile, Lyre watched from above, her eyes fixed on him. She couldn't deny that there was something impressive about his determination. He was pushing forward, refusing to let the lava and the heat break him. She had expected him to turn back, to abandon the trial. But he was still going, step by step, moving with purpose. The path became more dangerous as Alex moved forward. The earth beneath him began to shift, and the ground cracked open, sending sharp rocks and debris tumbling into the lava below. Alex had to jump, narrowly avoiding the falling rocks as they splashed into the molten river. His heart raced, but he kept moving, each leap and dodge testing his agility and strength. The heat from the volcano was relentless, but Alex's will was stronger. As he reached the next part of the trial, he was faced with a wall of molten rock, a barrier that stood between him and the heart of the flame. The heat from the wall was almost unbearable, and the stone around it bubbled and hissed as the lava surged. Alex could feel the sweat pouring down his back, but he didn't falter. He needed to think. There had to be a way through this. Looking around, he noticed a narrow ledge to the side of the wall, just wide enough for him to climb. It was risky, but there was no other way. Alex didn't hesitate. He grabbed onto the rocks, his fingers burning from the heat, and began to scale the wall. Every movement was calculated. The ledge was small, and the heat made it difficult to breathe, but Alex focused on the next step, blocking out everything else. Lyrae watched him from above, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never seen anyone move with such determination. The human was scaling the wall of molten rock like it was just another obstacle, and she couldn't tear her eyes away from him. She had expected him to fail. She had wanted him to fail. But now, she wasn't so sure. As Alex reached the top of the wall, he could see the heart of the flame glimmering in the center of the volcanic peak. It was beautiful, a crystal that glowed, with an inner light surrounded by the fire and fury of the volcano. But it wasn't just the crystal that Alex was focused on. He knew that he had to get closer, but the lava around it was constantly shifting, moving like a living thing. One wrong move could cost him everything. Taking a deep breath, Alex carefully moved toward the crystal. The heat from the lava surged, making it hard to see, but he kept his eyes on the prize. The heart of the flame was within reach. He was almost there. Just as he reached out to touch the crystal, the ground beneath him shook violently. The volcano roared, and a massive eruption sent a wave of molten rock toward him. Alex's heart skipped a beat. He had to act fast. Without thinking, he grabbed the crystal, yanking it from its pedestal just as the lava surged around him. He leaped forward, narrowly avoiding the molten wave as it splashed against the rocks. With the crystal in his hand, he scrambled back, pushing himself harder than ever. The lava was close, too close, but Alex refused to give up now. He made it back to the ledge, and with a final push, he leapt to safety, the crystal glowing brightly in his hand. The crowd erupted into cheers, and Lyrae stood, her eyes wide with shock. She had been certain that no human could survive the heart of the flame, but Alex had done it. Against all odds, he had succeeded. As Alex stood, breathing heavily and covered in ash, he looked up at the sky. He had completed the third trial, but he knew there were still more to come. But for now, he had proven something to the galaxy, and perhaps to himself. Lyrae watched him from above, a mix of admiration and disbelief in her eyes. She had doubted him, but now she could no longer deny the strength he possessed. This human soldier had come further than anyone had ever expected. And somehow, against all odds, he was still standing. The deeper they ventured into the shimmering woods, the more the landscape seemed to change. The trees grew taller and thicker, their trunks twisted in strange shapes that made the forest feel like a living maze. The air became heavy, charged, with an energy Elias couldn't explain. Every step they took, the forest seemed to grow darker, and every rustle in the trees felt like a warning. Elias's body was still weak from the venom, but he had learned to push past it. The Ravex had been just the beginning, and though it had been terrifying, it had also shown him something important. He was stronger than he thought. He had faced the creature alone and survived. He was capable of more than he had ever believed. Asha. walked beside him, her expression unreadable as she led him deeper into the woods. She had said little since the Ravex attack, but Elias could feel the weight of her eyes on him, studying him, waiting to see if he was ready for what was coming next. As they moved forward, a strange calm settled over the forest. The usual sounds of the woods, birds, rustling leaves, and distant animal calls, fell silent. Elias couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. Every instinct in his body told him to be alert, but the longer they walked, the more the silence gnawed at him. Suddenly, Asha stopped. She turned to Elias, her eyes filled with determination. "We are close," she said. "The final trial awaits. You." Elias's heart raced. "What does that mean? What's the final trial?" Asha didn't answer right away. She motioned for Elias to follow her as they made their way through a thick thicket of trees. The path became narrower, the air heavier, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Finally, they reached a clearing. It was smaller than the others, but it felt different, almost like a sacred space. At the center of the clearing stood an enormous stone covered in ancient symbols. The symbols seemed to glow faintly, pulsing with a rhythm that matched Elias's heartbeat. Around the stone, the ground was bare, as though nothing had been allowed to grow there for centuries. Asha stepped forward, her voice low. "This is the heart of the shimmering woods," she said. "The final trial is not just a test of your strength, but of your heart. To pass, you must face your greatest fear. The forest will summon it, and you will have to overcome it." Elias swallowed hard. His greatest fear? What could that possibly be? He had already faced the Ravex and survived, but Asha's words sent a shiver down his spine. This wasn't just about fighting a beast or surviving the woods. It was something deeper. Before he could speak, the ground beneath them trembled. The stone at the center of the clearing cracked open, revealing a dark, swirling mist that seemed to rise from the earth itself. Elias stepped back instinctively, but Asha remained calm, her eyes fixed on the mist. "This is it," she said. "You must face it now, Elias." The mist began to take shape, swirling and shifting like a living thing. Elias's heart pounded in his chest as the air around them grew colder, and the trees seemed to lean closer, their branches reaching out like long fingers. Suddenly, the mist began to form into a figure. Elias's breath caught in his throat as he saw the shadowy outline of a person. It was a figure from his past, someone he never thought he would see again. His older brother Sam, who had died years ago during an accident. Elias had never forgiven himself for what happened. He had always blamed himself, believing he could have done something to save him. The figure in the mist stepped forward, and Elias froze. "Sam?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. His brother's form grew clearer, and Elias could see the familiar features, his brother's face, his eyes, the way he used to smile. But there was something wrong. His brother's eyes were empty, dark, filled with an unspoken accusation. "You left me," the figure of Sam said, his voice hollow, echoing through the clearing. "You should have saved me." Elias's chest tightened as a flood of guilt washed over him. The memories of that day, of watching Sam slip away and feeling helpless, came rushing back. The fear, the regret, the anger. His brother's face was twisted in sorrow and accusation, and Elias felt like he was drowning in the weight of it. "No," Elias gasped, taking a step back. I tried. I tried to save you." The figure of Sam stepped closer, his form growing more solid, more real with each step. "You failed," he said. "You could have done more. You could have saved me. But you didn't." Elias felt the weight of the words crushing him, the guilt wrapping around his heart like a vice. He wanted to turn away, to run, but the figure of Sam was all he could see. The forest, the stone, Asha, they all faded away, and it was just him. and the shadow of his brother standing there accusing him. "You're not real," Elias muttered, his voice trembling. "You're not real. This is a trick." The figure of Sam paused, and Elias could see the faintest flicker of a smile on his brother's face. "It's not a trick, Elias. It's the truth. You left me." Tears welled up in Elias's eyes. He felt as though his heart would break. The guilt, the shame. It was all coming back. He had never told Sam how much he loved him, how much he regretted not being able to save him. He had never been able to forgive himself. But then, something inside Elias shifted. A spark of defiance, of strength he didn't know he had. He had to let go of the guilt. He had to face it. "No," Elias said again, this time with more strength. "I didn't leave you. I couldn't save you. But that doesn't mean I'm not sorry. I can't change the past, but I can move forward. I will honor you by living, by being the person you would have wanted me to be." The figure of Sam paused, and then slowly, it began to dissolve. The mist swirled and twisted, and the shape faded into nothingness. Elias stood there, breathing heavily, his chest tight with emotion. He had faced his fear, the fear that had haunted him for years, and he had overcome it. He didn't know what would come next, but he felt a weight lift off his shoulders. Asha stepped forward, her eyes kind but serious. "You've done it, Elias. You faced your fear and overcame it. You've passed the final trial." Elias didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, the clearing quiet once more. The forest was still alive, but it no longer felt like an enemy. It felt like a place of growth, a place of strength. "I'm ready," Elias finally said, his voice steady. "I'm ready to live,